Healthcare in the United States is certainly in a crisis.
I think it's all about money. It's about the politics. It's not about people's lives.
Everybody wants to make a profit, so we went from healthcare being a service to now being a big money maker.
I get frustrated when I'm sick and the doctors don't know what's wrong with you, but they just keep prescribing medications, and when one doesn't work, they prescribe another one.
I got the standard, okay, what's wrong with you? Here's what you take, next patient.
Because a lot of them scare you, and there's so many unnecessary tests.
I don't think we have the right answer yet.
Nobody has to tell you our healthcare systems are a mess. Millions of us have the uncomfortable feeling that somewhere along the way, we were told to butt out, that our own healthcare was none of our business. I'm Jack Perkins. In the coming hour, we're going to explore how we got where we are, what some people are doing about it, and what you can do to take a more active role in your own health care. The place to start, I guess, is Pakistan. About 5,000 years ago, archaeologists found an impressive water and sewerage system at Mohenjo-daro. The system removed wastewater through covered drains without getting anybody's feet wet. That's an accomplishment that eludes many modern cities. About 300 years later, reports of herbal treatments surfaced in China. Through each of these civilizations and others, we have writings and recorded images of spinal manipulation as a drugless approach to overall health. Meanwhile, Egypt established an office whimsically called the Greatest Physician of Lower and Upper Egypt. Dental records from around that time include the earliest application of false teeth. And I love this one. Reproduced here is the first physician's fee schedule from Babylon. Along with standard pricing, it includes a notation on malpractice. Quote, if the doctor, in opening an abscess, shall kill the patient, his hand shall be cut off. Any questions? Hippocratic health care was based on concern for the patient and a philosophy not so much of sickness as of wellness.
Humans are designed to be healthy as long as they are whole, body, mind, and spirit. People are characterized by self-healing properties that come from within and an innate health force. Perfect health, harmony, is the normal state for all life.
Now that's a vision of wellness, if ever there was one. But of course, Greek philosophy being what it was only a matter of time before another opposite idea emerged, the philosophy of sickness. This philosophy split body, mind, and spirit.
The issues of mind-body as two separate entities arose first back in the period of the Greeks. And that's especially around the time of Plato and Aristotle. And what they figured on is that there's a physical entity, the body, but there are thoughts which are not physical. They're energy and etheric air.
Throughout the years, the debate went on, and it was called the debate between the atomists, those who believed the atomic theory that the body is matter only, and the vitalists, those who believed with Hippocrates that some vital force animates the body. And so we have the great atomist-vitalist debate, and for many centuries the debate was, in essence, a tie.
That was until Isaac Newton, based on his study of planets, convinced philosophers and scientists that the universe was made up only of physical matter.
To put it in modern terminology, those who believed that you could explain everything in mechanistic terms, including the function of the body, and those who said, no, the body is not a machine that has learned how to manufacture consciousness. It's the other way around.
In many ways, the history of modern healthcare is the story of the triumph of Newton over Hippocrates. Hippocrates relied on the patient's own potential to be healthy. Newton, following the course of the Industrial Revolution, relied on technology. Now, quite honestly, if technology were the answer, if things were working out, this would be a very short program. But things aren't working out. And those who believe that our problem is principally economic miss the point. Surely economics plays a part in it. But really, Our healthcare dilemma is a question of two philosophies in conflict. One philosophy sees people as whole persons who tend toward wellness if there are no barriers to prevent it. The other philosophy sees people as complex machines, prone to constant breakdown. And if the machine breaks down, tinker with it and keep tinkering with it until it can't be fixed anymore. So, whom do you trust to help you with the questions ahead? Well, why not trust yourself? Why not learn as much as you can and then ask yourself the question, which of these two philosophies makes the most sense? And then act in a manner consistent with your answer.
My experience, I guess, in the 40s and the 50s was that we had a family doctor.
If they said we had scarlet fever, we had scarlet fever. If we had mumps, we had mumps. If they said we had appendicitis, we got an operation.
You really were not supposed to even ask a medical doctor about any of the procedures. It just was not condoned.
If a doctor said you needed to take this, that's what you did. You took it.
We lived in a more accepting time, and any authority that told us anything with any amount of validity to what they said, of course we believed.
And if you inquire a bit about any alternate methods or any natural methods with regards to not just childbirth, but any form of medication or treatment, it just wasn't tolerated.
I remember asking my doctor if perhaps I could have this baby at home, and him saying, "My God, we live in modern times. We doctors do that now."
For 100 years, medicine produced one miracle drug after another, reaching its highest status as we entered the 20th century. News of Alexander Fleming's discovery of penicillin blew like a fresh breeze on a hot day. Here at last was a solution to the infections that had nagged surgeons and hospitals at the turn of the century. There followed in quick succession a series of miracle cures. We began to feel that modern research could do anything. Now, that was then. In the meantime, a lot has happened to shake that faith.
What science cannot replicate is the symphony of the human body. The human body is not just one drug acting at a certain point for a certain mechanism for a certain effect. As soon as you do one thing in the body, simultaneously, an infinity of things happen.
I think medicine is kind of an interesting dilemma. On the one hand, people are just as sick as they ever were. So the big killer diseases like cancer and heart disease are still there. The downside of that is medicine doesn't have too many solutions for them at the moment.
And statistics support this larger problem. Death from reported malpractice cases is now the third leading cause of death behind heart disease and cancer. Many experts believe that our healthcare system is collapsing. People have lost faith in the philosophy of sickness. Apart from legislation, apart even from insurance, we are taking healthcare into our own hands. The New England Journal of Medicine reports that Americans made 37 million more visits to alternative healthcare providers in 1990 than to family doctors, internists, all the mainstream healthcare providers combined. 1/3 of us went to chiropractors or sought alternative healthcare on our own and paid for the bulk of those visits out of our own pockets. And here's a surprise. Those of us most likely to seek alternatives to mainstream healthcare are 25 to 49 years of age, well-educated, with incomes in excess of $35,000.
I happen to believe that there are methodologies and different philosophies of healthcare that maybe aren't in the mainstream of American thought right now, that we ought to be looking at, that we ought to be examining. That's why I started the Office of Alternative Medicine, to start looking at complementary medicine. Everything from chiropractic to acupuncture to homeopathy to everything else. There's a lot of things out there that we haven't looked at that work and that are non-invasive, and they're cheaper, and they keep you healthy in the first place.
We could cure all the diseases in the world and still not create health. Health is more than the absence of disease. Getting beyond the world we have created requires a thinking beyond our present level. And that kind of thinking has already begun. As the philosophical foundations of healthcare begin to change, a new thinking based on the philosophy of wellness is rising from obscurity.
We have to get away from a mechanistic, materialistic approach and begin a process of education, and begin a process of education for both our children as well as for our adults that shows them that they have the tools for well-being within themselves.
Dorland's medical dictionary defines health as optimal physical, social, and mental well-being, and not merely the absence of disease or infirmity.
Our current generation of physicians is very steeped in the superstition of materialism, so they tend to forget that the body has inner intelligence. I think that's familiar to chiropractors, for example, when they speak of innate intelligence as a very core premise for all the strategies that they use to bring about the healing process.
Now, the premise of chiropractic and others of these natural healthcare philosophies is that when you do that, health is restored on its own.
In 1895, a janitor by the name of Harvey Lillard was cleaning the office of Dr. D.D. Palmer in the Ryan Building in Davenport. Harvey had been partially deaf for 14 years after hurting his neck.
I endeavored to bring a new technique and philosophy of health into an unbelieving world. Perhaps it was new, but perhaps it is as old as time, as old as truth itself. For it was based on a natural law that said something like this: humankind has been endowed with the potential for health. Nature needs no help, just no interference.
Well, D.D. examined Harvey, found a misaligned spinal bone, and adjusted it.
If you interfere with a person's nerve system by misaligning the spine, he will be sick. And if you remove this interference, the person will return to health naturally.
3 days later, Harvey's hearing returned. It would be decades before science had the research tools to verify D.D. Palmer's words. In the meanwhile, his discovery caused excitement among patients who were helped where medicine had failed them, and more than a little suspicion from the scientific establishment of the day. In the early years, chiropractic was stiffly opposed by scientific, political, and judicial systems.
If you read the history of the AMA, you discover that there was a Council on Medical Education established in 1906 whose goal was to reform all education and make sure that it was scientific, and they succeeded largely. There was an early Council on Propaganda, which was designed to advertise the dangers of non-medical therapies, so that there has been, from the beginning of medicine in America, a concerted effort to oppose non-medical therapies.
Prosecuting authorities were very vindictive, and the tenacity of the medical authorities and their jealousy and hatred and vindictiveness is hard to describe. I was arrested 12 times for practicing chiropractic in Cincinnati, Ohio. You would be found guilty anyway, always found guilty. I was in prison for the terrible crime of practicing chiropractic and helping people, but while I was in prison, I was committing the same darn crime on the guards and the inmates.
The truth is, many chiropractic pioneers paid dearly for their commitment.
We will return to From Simple Beginnings in a moment.
Unfortunately, I never met my grandfather, but he was the first chiropractor in our family.
And was a chiropractor for about 38 years.
My dad and his two brothers became chiropractors.
In 1895, D.D. Palmer defined a new philosophy of health.
A number of our players throughout my career on the Olympic water polo team have had doctors tell them that your career is over.
And one of the members of the team had just been advised by orthopedics never to play water polo again.
My dad came in and he was so confident.
And I gave him an adjustment.
And that player never had another problem.
Chiropractic was attacked because of its philosophy that health comes from within.
It was funny because the one father came over to me and said, all my life I gave chiropractors a hard time. He said, but my son told me how you helped him so much that he said, I ask your forgiveness.
Today, science has verified Dr. Palmer's discovery.
It's very powerful when you can help somebody's body to heal itself.
Celebrating 100 years of your good health.
We now return to From Simple Beginnings.
Perhaps the most influential of the early doctors of chiropractic was Dr. B.J. Palmer. Now, B.J. was the son of D.D. Palmer, and by all accounts, the developer of chiropractic.
The major accomplishment that B.J. brought to the profession was his ability to focus on chiropractic, his ability to preserve chiropractic as a healthcare art separate from medicine.
B.J. was teaching in a very specialized way. There is one system in the body that controls and coordinates all other organs and structures. That's the nervous system. It can't be said about any other system. It happens that that nervous system that we're talking about is housed by the spinal column, the major coaxial cable of that system that controls and coordinates all other organs and structures is inside the bones of the back. And there is a relationship between the structural integrity of that spine and the ability of the nervous system to control and coordinate organs and structures. It's that equation that makes it so important.
The chiropractic practice is to locate the exact vertebral subluxation and ascertain its precise abnormal position, then by hand only, efficiently give it an adjustment, which opens the occlusion, releases the pressure, restores the transmission, and health is thus reestablished. Getting sick people well is as simple as that.
Chiropractic's next challenge was to preserve its uniqueness while gaining acceptance and recognition. As the GIs returned from World War II, the educational institutions exploded, and chiropractic spread internationally.
The GI Bill of Rights, which was passed in 1944, became actually the spark plug for a resurgence for student populations. Thousands, literally, of GIs returning from World War II took up chiropractic.
Chiropractic today is practiced in over 50 countries throughout the world.
We are regulated as an institution and as a profession much more than we ever were. We are accredited as an educational institution, not just by chiropractic associations, but also by national education associations and regional education associations.
There are 16 chiropractic colleges that are accredited by the Council on Chiropractic Education. The Council on Chiropractic Education is the accrediting agency that is recognized by the Department of Education to accredit programs leading to the Doctor of Chiropractic degree.
While chiropractic's educational standards in specialized areas often exceeded those of medicine, its research and efforts accelerated. Clinical research has proven chiropractic to be an effective approach to relief. A study in Australia of 1,996 cases of low back pain found that people returned to work faster, approximately 6 days, versus medical patients who were off for 25 days. Chiropractic saved consumers money. $392 for chiropractic care, $1,569 for medical treatment.
For example, the Mead study, if you look at the data where it compares chiropractic treatment compared to hospital treatment for low back pain, Professor Mead concludes that for every dollar that the British government would spend, the equivalent of that, for every dollar spent, would save $3 in terms of health care savings. And so what we see today is chiropractic fast emerging as a component, as a solution to cost containment in health care.
The World Health Organization and the World Federation of Chiropractic co-sponsored a meeting in London in '93, and that was the first one in which the World Health Organization, or the WHO, has explicitly been involved in a major chiropractic meeting, and that was about occupational back pain.
The British Medical Journal found that chiropractic care would reduce sick time by 290,000 days, saving $25.5 million in output and $5.7 million to the Social Security system. The MANGA report, prepared for the Ontario government, said, based on the safety, higher satisfaction levels, cost effectiveness, and results, chiropractic should be preferred and possibly should be made the gatekeepers for back pain. Patients use chiropractic to release the body's innate capacity for healing conditions like headaches and asthma.
We're doing a study right now on dysmenorrhea. We have done a pilot study which suggested that women who have painful menstruation benefit from chiropractic care. We're now in the middle of a very large and well-controlled study to determine just how effective chiropractic is in this particular condition.
When you look at the wider issues, it's very hard. I was a member of the lay public 15 years ago before I became involved with chiropractic, and when it was suggested that chiropractic could help with some cardiac problems, digestive problems, respiratory problems, my natural instinct coming from where I came from was to be suspicious of that. I now, through what I've seen and heard and what I've read, know, and anyone with an open mind would have to accept that chiropractic can produce some very interesting results in those fields.
So we are good back doctors, but it's because the nervous system is inside it. It is simply the vehicle with which we get at that ability of the nervous system to control and coordinate all other organs and structures in the body.
But chiropractic's biggest benefit will undoubtedly be its approach to correcting interference to nerves in and around the spine, allowing the body to function better, releasing its potential for health. This interference is called vertebral subluxation complex.
There's been a tremendous amount of research in both medicine and chiropractic to demonstrate that subtle abnormalities of the position or motion of a bone in the spine can lead to significant alterations in nerve system activity.
This bony interference, irritation and pinching of the nerve, can cause a reduction of the function of the nerve system. The muscles go into spasm, and some on one side shrink and some on the other side are into spasm, and so they pull the spine permanently out of its normal motion, out of its normal function.
Spinal subluxation can lead to degenerative changes in the spine, and there are several phases of spinal degeneration that have been reported in the medical literature. One textbook called The Atlas of Spinal Diseases talks about 4 phases of spinal degeneration. Initially, we simply see a change in the structure of the spine. This will actually be followed by things such as disc thinning and spur formation. These changes can eventually lead to permanent fusion. As a consequence, early correction is imperative so that the neurological consequences are minimized.
The symptomatic presentation of a subluxation may be very similar to high blood pressure. It can be there. The patient may not be aware of it at all. It may be doing damage, and they may have no sign of it whatsoever.
We will return to From Simple Beginnings in a moment.
I went in for adjustments while I was pregnant, and it really felt great.
Science has proven that a misaligned spine can interfere with your nervous system.
I now have my little boy Keaton under care, and to me, he's just this little piece of magic. He's a miracle. When I hold him, he is perfect. He was born perfect, and he knows how to heal himself. And that's what chiropractic is all about, is letting the body heal itself.
Chiropractors are the only doctors trained to correct spinal misalignment, to restore nervous system function and good health.
My little boy, only 4 months old, is starting out right.
For 100 years, chiropractors have helped families get well and stay well, naturally, scientifically.
He can start from the very beginning in being well.
Celebrating 100 years of your good health.
We now return to From Simple Beginnings.
In 1993, at the University of Calgary, a research team discovered a group of cells at the top of the neck, the top of the spinal cord, that actually is the direct pathway between the nervous system and the immune system. If there was possibly any interference to that area of the spine and the spinal cord, it's possible that that would impact the immune system's ability to protect that person's body. So that is just one of the many ways that an interference to the nervous system can occur at the spine that could impact something other than just back pain or neck pain.
My thrust of the practice is basically preventative health care, and so they don't have to have a symptom in the world to come in for good basic maintenance care, teaching them, how to eat right and sit right and keep themselves adjusted so they don't get sick. And I think what's really neat about that is I'm now seeing the second generation of my original children who have been under mostly chiropractic care all their life, and their children now also. To me, that's the dream of the future.
I think chiropractic is much closer to understanding the reality that the body is a function of intelligence.
I think there's going to be more and more emphasis on wellness and fitness and the prevention of disease. It's something that chiropractic has been emphasizing all of these years. If you want to cure illness, you have to go beyond the mechanisms into the origins of disease, and you have to go even beyond the origins of disease, understand the origins of life itself and how life expresses itself in biological forms. Chiropractic is much closer to that understanding.
The future of healthcare comes down to philosophy. Sickness or wellness? Which philosophy makes the most sense? Your answer to that question affects the care you seek. Indeed, your answer determines what you will insist upon as we continue to pursue healthcare reform. It is all unfolding in our lifetimes. Where it goes is not in the hands of institutions or systems. It is in your hands and mine. Thanks for taking this journey with us. I'm Jack Perkins.